Final round.
Power.
Nice shot.
KO.
Welcome to Gaymer Girls. Welcome to Gaymer Girls, the podcast full of nerd news and lore lectures for the girls and the gamers. I'm Van.
I'm Sana.
And welcome to an episode on love games. I'm really excited for this one.
Yes, right in time for Valentine's Day.
It is a drizzly day here in LA, but I am really excited to share with you a little bit of a more unconventional episode, something that falls a little bit more into my wheelhouse, having studied TV and that storytelling. We're going to be talking all about reality dating TV shows and dating apps and the gamification of love.
Yeah, and that has become a lot more popular recently. There's been a lot more shows. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess, you know, when the writers strike, reality TV
really had to blow up because you have field producers who help create stories and who give drama to the cast, and they sort of provide a narrative, but it's not actual writing. So reality TV had a huge sort of uptick during the writer's strike, but it's been steadily growing. I mean, I remember watching Love Island UK for the first time when I was studying abroad right before they kicked me out of France due to COVID on my study abroad, which I'm not bitter about it. What are you talking about at all? But we're going to be talking a little bit about reality TV dating shows and, as an extension, dating apps and how they bring to life the gamification of love and purveying a culture of treating love and even sex as a game to be played despite the reality TV and the dating apps' intentions.
Yes.
Okay? So just a little background. Sana, you haven't been on a dating app in quite some time.
No, I have not. It's been a good 3 years or so since I've touched a dating app.
Yes, you have a long-term partner and very, very cute. But the last time that I think you saw Tinder, it was a little different than how it looks to me today.
Though I have been getting a lot of Tinder ads lately.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the, meet cute happens differently now Tinder ads, if anybody's familiar with them.
Yeah, I also got a bunch too, and I do keep a dating app or two on my phone for scrolling purposes primarily. It gets me off of Instagram, to be honest, but then I'm just swiping and I realize I'm playing into what they want, which is my time and attention on their apps. I have at one point, I think, downloaded all of the various apps.
How many are there now? Because I was only really around for Tinder and Bumble, but not much more.
Bumble kind of died, to be honest. There is, we're going to get to this, but there is actually a downtrend in people on these apps. There's app burnout. There are analytics about how Gen Z right now, which is our generation, though we're elder Gen Z, are not really on the apps anymore, or we're becoming disillusioned with it. So I'm actually just going to jump down to a video. There was a fantastic quick bite episode done by Fads. It's called It's Not Just You. Everyone hates dating apps now. And it's a great breakdown, sort of deep dive into the actual metrics and analytics of the popularity of dating apps. And they're going down. There's a lot of people who are burning out. It's not a great environment for creating love connections. Neither are these reality dating TV shows. And it's interesting because everything has gamified. Truly, they're triggering the same reward systems in the brain. They're using the same tactics as actual games to... But now it's commodifying love. So I'm going to jump right back up to a paper that I read. Reality Dating Show Game Analysis by Ashley M.L. Guajardo as an associate of the University of Utah. Guajardo ends up writing this paper about how reality dating TV shows can be used as a model for video games and for gaming in general.
Interesting.
And games aren't... one of the conclusive points were that despite what an announcer claims at the beginning of like an opening monologue in one of these dating TV shows, think of Love Island, think of Love is Blind, they aren't truly about bringing lonely singles together, but rather creating interesting television to watch. With the rise of streaming and online competitive gaming, making games which are as interesting to watch as they are to play presents new opportunities for growing audiences. So this paper builds on top of another study done by Consalvo and Dutton's research toolkit, which breaks down what is needed for an interesting game. And these reality dating shows can be considered games according to this set of conditions. Through describing the findings and relevance, the lessons learned about designing for social interaction, competition, and strife in gameplay, you can take a look at reality dating TV shows and find good markers for all of those, which you can incorporate into games.
For sure.
So let's just start right off the bat. I'm going to introduce a bunch of the reality dating TV shows. I don't know how familiar you are with them. Have you seen any?
So I don't have a Netflix, so I haven't watched most of the seasons of any of the shows, but I've seen like a season here and there of a few of the most popular ones. I think the only one I haven't watched is Love Island, but that's one that I've heard a lot of stuff is about. And I am interested in eventually watching it, but I haven't had the chance. But I've watched like a bit of The Bachelor, a bit of The Ultimatum, a bit of Love is Blind.
Those are the biggest ones. So I'm just going to kind of run down a list of the biggest ones, what their plots are, like their log lines, their prizes. We're going to go into a few others that aren't as relevant or well known, just listing off the titles. I'm going to go into a little bit of the queer focused ones. There are some seasons or episodes that are queer focused, which are fantastic. And then a little bit into the research on how these shows are affecting our mindsets as a generation on love and dating and TV. And somewhere in there, I'm going to throw in a little bit about dating apps as well. So I am going to argue that every single dating show is a game. Most of these games have contestants competing for vacations, cash prizes, or notoriety and fame. So even if they don't have a specific, like, hey, everybody gets $100,000 if you complete whatever task, you are still competing to stay on the show. So that is why I would argue a show like Love is Blind, where there is no particular cash prize at the end, is still a game and a competition, because you as a contestant need to stay interesting, need to stay partnered in order to stay on the show.
This is true.
Let's just start with Love Island. This is arguably the biggest one. There are spin-offs all around the world. You have 1,000 different iterations of the show. It is a group of incredibly conventionally attractive single people who are put on a villa on an island to couple up, and they have to compete with each other as romantic interests in order to stay on the island for a jackpot of usually about $100K. So there are plenty of spin-offs. Every episode will feature a game or a competition, sort of a game within a game, that will further the individual relationships or cause more drama. There's a recoupling, there are arguments, you have a host that's going to direct these. You have, at the end of the show, the most compatible couple will share a cash prize. So in addition to the games within the game of the show itself, there's also a spin-off mobile game that's like one of those story games where you can play as a character and date all these other people on the island. So there are games on games on games here with Love Island. Moving on to Love is Blind. This one doesn't have like a specific end cash prize, but it's single individuals who use dating, quote, pods to converse with potential partners and grow relationships without ever seeing each other. Though I don't think a lot of these people are truly taking it in the correct spirit, because you see particularly the men in the show trying to be like, so if I hugged you, would my arms wrap all the way around you?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, as much as they tried to say they don't see each other, there are still definitely contestants that describe how they look to each other, which has also ended up in situations where after they do see each other, the other person being very disappointed because they created this image in their brain with whatever traits the other person describes.
Exactly.
And it's just not living up to their expectations.
So I do think the producers do need to be a little bit more strict on, like, hey, don't describe yourself as Clark Kent. when you don't look like Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Don't try and say you're a Henry Cavill type. Because I think that was one that is very specifically referenced in one of the most recent seasons. And then, like, he does not look like Henry Cavill.
No.
Only Henry Cavill looks like Henry Cavill. So, basically, there's no direct prize, though this does beg the question of if staying relevant on the show and getting to the relationship stages of the show is the competition itself. Because you date, and then if you decide to get engaged, you can see each other, and then you actually get to go on a little vacation to see if you stay through the vacation phase. So that is one of the, quote, prizes in the show. Then there's like a proxy apartment, and you practice living with each other, and then you're flown out to see each other's families, and it's a lot of these non-cash prizes that you are vying for, and you're vying for the attention on the show. So there's another one. This one I enjoy, I think, most out of all of these. It is Are You the One? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it.
Basically, there is a mysterious algorithm where everyone who applies answers a bunch of questions. There's interviews with their friends and family. And supposedly the show finds you your perfect match within another contestant. And you are supposed to live together in a vacation house for I think it's about 10 weeks. You have a matchmaking algorithm that pairs the contestants up, and you have to compete in challenges to go on dates with your potential matches and make love connections, and then you can find out if the love connection that you've chosen is your perfect match. At the end of like the episode or the round, you get to find out, say everyone will couple up.
Yeah.
And then the lights will go off and tell you how many of the matches are correct, but not who is correct and which match is correct. So you have to end the game by having as many correct or perfect matches as possible. Now, the prize money is pretty significant for this one. It is about $1 million, I believe.
That's crazy. And I'm guessing that's $1 million split among all the contestants.
Exactly. It's split among the contestants if they correctly identify all of their perfect matches.
I see.
If they don't identify them, they do not get the money. So say you make a connection with someone and you're really into them, but they're not your perfect match, but you decide to keep pursuing them, you're screwing up everybody else's chances of getting that money.
I see.
So there's deception. There's this game of trying to convince others, like, hey, you weren't the perfect match for that person. Try out me instead. Trying to like pull them apart, trying to cause drama and strife. And then it's also like trying to match up lifestyles. Like, who do you realistically, objectively think would be your partner? If you're religious and they're not, is that a deal breaker for you? Did they say it was a deal breaker? There's so much that goes into this. So that's Are You the One? And then the others, really big one I think I'm going to cover here is Too Hot to Handle.
I do know this one.
Which is the stupidest
it's so
game
silly
in the world. Basically, these people got to keep their hands off each other, and they really can't. They don't have self-control.
I mean, you also put a lot of very young, very conventionally attractive people all together and say this is the one thing you can't do.
And you trick them into it as well.
Yeah.
So they come into the show under the premise of it being a different type of reality dating show. They get maybe a day or 2 days to hang out, hook up, make out, have fun, and then immediately they're like, oh, by the way, you can't do that anymore if you want to win any money.
Yeah.
So on the Netflix reality TV show, Too Hot to Handle, the grand prize is typically $100,000, which contestants can win by refraining from any sexual activity throughout the show. So the prize money does decrease every single time they commit an infraction, which is being sexual in any way. So that is, in my opinion, dumb. Because
but it does make for a good game to watch.
It does. Oh, it's incredibly entertaining. I understand why it's one of the big ones. So without going too much into them, we have a few other big shows. We have The Ultimatum, which I think is another stupid one. It's these people where one person really doesn't want to commit to marriage or doesn't really know if they want to get married, and one person really does.
Yeah, they issue an ultimatum and they put all these people together and say, hey, swap partners and see if you actually want to get married to your partner by the end of this show, or do you want to go off with someone else, or just simply break up? Which, honestly, hot take, my opinion, I know I'm not married, so I can't speak to this, but if you're in a relationship and you issue an ultimatum about getting married, you're probably not ready for marriage.
Yeah, I mean, you can speak to this though. You're in a long-term relationship, a committed partnership.
100%.
So,
and we've had conversations like this. And the thing is that marriage is very complicated. It's very expensive, or it can be. Some people just don't want to get the government involved in their relationship. Some people just aren't sure. Maybe it's an unstable time in life. Maybe they don't know what they want. But if you're issuing an ultimatum, I don't think you should be together.
No, I really don't. And you know what? For the most part, those couples do end up staying together.
I saw, at least last season, a lot of them separated.
Last season, a bunch of them did separate, but I think out of every couple on every version of the ultimatum, there is the majority that choose to get engaged at the end, because that is what you're playing for, is getting engaged.
Yes.
You're also playing to stay on the show.
Yes.
So others that exist, without going too much into them: 90 Day Fiance, Perfect Match, Summer House, Temptation Island, Married at First Sight, The Bachelor, and Bachelorette. Those I'm not going into The Bachelor or Bachelorette because they are simply so well known. A bunch of men want to date a single woman. A bunch of women want to date a single man. What is going to be interesting is when I get into a bisexual version of The Bachelor / Bachelorette.
Interesting.
So there are also just notable mentions: celebrity dating shows, Flavors of Love, Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire, just these shows that are pretty much gimmicks. There are also web series versions of dating games. There is the channel Cut, which does The Button.
Yes.
A button will ask you questions. You have two people sitting at a table across from each other. When the button lights up, you can slap it down before the other person and get someone else in the chair if you are not vibing with them. So in this way, you're gamifying. I have to hit the button first before you do if I want to reject you, pretty much, and stay in the seat.
Yeah.
Then there's also Jubilee, and Jubilee does a version called Versus One, which is like speed dating 20 people. And it's like you have 20 guys and one girl, and then you have to round them all out. And again, it is a competition to stay in the show.
Yes.
Now we get to move on to the fun aspect of queer dating reality
Which there
shows.
haven't been a lot.
Not a lot, but more than what you'd expect, and earlier than you'd expect.
Really?
One of the first ones that caught my attention is a show called A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila, which is a bachelor / bachelorette dating style show. You have a number of women and a number of men who are all in it to date this one woman, Tila Tequila, who turns out is bisexual.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's a big surprise in the first season. And it's a big deal because this came out 2007, 2008-ish.
Oh, wow.
So much earlier than you'd expect. And the biphobia on the show is real. Very real. And we still see biphobia today. You have to choose one, you have to choose the other. Oh, you're just confused. We get a lot of that narrative. So Tila Tequila is set up with a team of lesbians and a team of straight men. And they're competing in games. And some of these games are strange.
Oh.
They're very strange. In the second season, there's one where they have to take random shots of things, including alcohol. One of them's like pig's blood.
I don't like that.
Yeah, no, it was a bit odd. But again, 2007, 2008, we get a certain flavor of not necessarily regulation-friendly reality TV. So we also have the Bi Life. There is a bisexual season of Are You the One? Season 8. If you want to look further into these, like get a little bit more information and a proper analysis, Verily Bitchy does a fantastic episode called The Bisexual Gimmick in Reality TV on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's a
I'll
really
definitely
interesting
check it
watch.
out.
So there are a few others. There is The Ultimatum, Queer Love, which is a very cool
I
season.
did see that one.
Yeah. What did you think?
Once again, these people should not be in relationships.
See, I think that goes across the board, though.
Yeah, no, I think what it tells you is that people who should not be in relationships does not discriminate when it comes to your sexual orientation. It's just everyone across the spectrum, honestly.
Yeah. And you also have to realize for these reality shows, these producers are picking messy people. They want people who are interesting to watch. They want people who are easily influenced or swayed or dramatic or have strong characteristics about themselves that make them great TV.
Yes.
And that, again, does not discriminate between gay, straight, or anything else.
It does not.
There's a perfect match season that has a surprise queer couple and they just get to roll with it, but it's not an inherently queer season. There's Married at First Sight UK, which also has some queer individuals.
Oh, that's fun.
If you want more information on what queer reality shows there is a fantastic article by out.com. It is 26 LGBTQ plus reality dating shows and where to watch them. So that is
very
where I got
nice.
some of this information, and it's just a well done article. Circling back from dating reality TV series into dating apps now, referring back to this video by Fads, It's Not Just You, Everyone Hates Dating Apps Now. Dating apps have become a game. And I don't know about you, but when I first downloaded Tinder when I was like 18, I was treating it like a game, just trying to see.
It's definitely a game. You're just like swiping left and right the whole time.
Yeah.
It feels like a mobile game 100%.
Exactly. And I remember only using it, and I still kind of only use it to like see if I find people I know on there. Like that's because then I have like the extra little bit of security of like, oh, I'm not meeting up with a stranger. Like I know you like vaguely. But yeah, I remember downloading Tinder at like 18 on and off there. And then now, so there was Tinder and Bumble is pretty big back when you were on the apps. Bumble died. Bumble also got sued by a man for being discriminatory against men.
Because of the women messaging first situation that they got rid of?
Which to me is confusing because is that not the point of the app? Can you not create something for a certain group of people?
Yeah, that's... Women being able to message first was the tagline for Bumble, essentially. So if you didn't know what you were getting into, that's not on the app. That's on you.
Yeah, and having specific dating apps for specific groups of people to date within that group, is that not like Christian Mingle? Is that not farmersonly.com? You don't have to be lonely at farmersonly.com.
I forgot they had a jingle.
I remember driving down to the Illinois State Fair and there were roads just for tractors and we have the radio on. It's 2013. I'm seeing Fall Out Boy in concert and I hear the Farmers Only jingle and it's stuck in my head ever since. And so like having one of our good friends, he's on J-Date because he wants to find a Jewish woman and like that those individual sectors of apps like that to me makes sense that you have an app that's catered towards someone or some specific subsect of people. Bumble got sued. It's not really big anymore. I don't think people use it very much. I know there's a Bumble BFF feature where you can find friends.
Yes.
And I think that's fun. I just don't think we should mix that on dating apps. I think that should be like a separate app within itself.
This is true, but I think what's helpful about making it a part of a dating app is lots of people download dating apps already. It's like how a lot of people will use dating apps if they're looking for a third. Even though it would be helpful to have a separate dating app for that, but you just get so many people in a pool on dating apps that are so general that if you have this extra feature in there, you know, you're more likely to find more people.
So guess what? There is an app that's not just for thirds. I'm sure there is an app that's just for thirds, but another big app right now is something called Feeld, F-E-E-L-D.
I have heard of this one.
Yeah, it's very queer friendly.
Yes.
It's very kink friendly. It is a app where a lot of people can go and just be very honest about themselves and what they want.
Yes.
And that's where you find people who are looking for thirds or people who want to be a third. And that one's really big right now, but it's really like Hinge is big. Hinge is more the relationship-y one. Tinder's definitely a hookup-y one now. But these apps really mimic games. Throwing back to our first episode, there's a repetitive, almost Gasha-esque feel to the swipe system because you are constantly swiping to see who you're going to see next, who your likes are. These apps will have pop-ups constantly or notifications that are like, hey, you have 70 people who like you. Come and click on this and find out who likes you.
I remember those.
Yeah, and then it often leads you to like their membership page. You have different tiers. Tinder got under fire, and I think they still have this, but they have a $500 tier.
Yes.
Which is wild.
The subscription services for these apps are a bit crazy when it comes to price points.
But a lot of these apps also have their own currency. On Feeld, you have something called pings, which is, it's not really a currency, but it's a way that you can send messages to people so that they can review your profile in more earnest, or you can tell them something. And oftentimes they're incredibly sexual messages. But that is also the nature of the app.
This is true.
But you have this system of swipe and reward. It's inundating you with people. These apps claim that they are meant to be deleted.
Yes.
That you are meant to go on this app, find a connection. Tinder boasts, I believe, on an ad that there are new connections or a new relationship starts every 3 seconds on Tinder.
Yes, I did see that ad.
And I think that just means that you, like, people match with people on average every 3 seconds. And the thing is, coming from a corporate marketing background, absolutely no company will alienate a user base by creating a product that is meant for them to never use that product again. The term that I feel like a lot of people use in the gaming community as well is enshittification.
I'm like so blanking on this and I feel like I should know it.
The idea that something is made worse and worse and worse, or more monetizable and ad friendly, and until it is almost impossible to use. Tinder has fallen down to that. There are ads constantly. You have to swipe left, swipe right on ads. And you are constantly inundated with click here, buy this membership, this person wants to talk with you, and you are inundated with these people who are like, you cannot possibly have conversations, genuine conversations, going with 50, 60, 70 people at once on all the people that you match with. Now I understand there is a disparity between matches in terms of just the general male and female demographic. Women tend to get more. There's also less of them on the apps, I believe. There is a movement that I think it was Bumble had a movement, a very poorly planned ad campaign to try and get women on the app more, where they had billboards saying, like, you know that celibacy isn't for you. Or like trying to get people out and about in a very sexual way.
I do remember those. Yeah.
And it was a very poorly vetted ad campaign.
Yes.
So there is this idea that these apps tell you that they're meant to be deleted. They tell you that they are giving you real connections. These shows tell you that they are really building up a genuine environment for people to connect with others. And that's simply not true, because the base reality of these TV shows and these games and these dating apps is that they are meant to cause drama. They're meant to keep you in them.
Yes. What's the point of making a show if you're not still watching it?
Exactly. What's the point of making an app and being on an app if you want to delete it, if you're going to delete it? So this is the gamification of love. We're seeing it absolutely everywhere. And it is actively taking away from our perception of a lot of things. So there is, just right off the bat, in connection to these shows, Love Island in particular, there was a paper written by Alicia Denby at the University of Manchester in the UK called Toxicity and Femininity in Love Island: How Reality Dating Shows Perpetuate Sexist Attitudes Towards Women. And one of the conclusive points is that upon analysis of 10 selected scenes, it can be argued that the representations of gender in Love Island perpetuate sexist and heteronormative attitudes which serve to disadvantage women. There is the idea that these shows are creating archetypal characters and characters almost that which you could play, which men will sort women into the type of woman that you are and categorize them. And it is ultimately harmful for the perpetuation of feminism. It is ultimately harmful for women in general, despite if it's a man or a woman consuming this content. So that I find interesting. And what I did find interesting as well is that you do have these archetypal characters being made. You have in these shows the bitchy one, you have the drama starter, you have like the smart, quote unquote smart one who wants to outsmart others.
You have like the sweet, kind person who's usually maybe a little bit on like the shy side. You have the villain.
You have all of these archetypal characters. Again, it's a game these people are playing, and in order to get cast, you have to play a character.
Yeah.
So it is really warping perceptions of people, and I worry that it is becoming more normalized. I do think people see these shows and they go, okay, well, yeah, you know, that's not normal. You don't normally act like this. But on one of the most recent seasons of Love Island, there was so much not controversy, but discussion about women and on the show and their plastic surgery they had done, because they all look incredibly older than they actually are.
Yes.
Due to the perpetuation of...
I did see a lot of those photos, and the fact that these women at all feel pressured to get any, like, to get filler done, to get breast implants.
BBL culture is massive.
Yes, and then that also plays into...
Massive. I'm sorry.
But that also plays into, you see the hyper consumption of fast fashion to get a lot of the outfits that they then wear on these shows that, you know, then accentuate a lot of those things. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look that way. If that is how you want to look, that is fine. But if you feel pressured at all to do it, to conform to a certain look to get cast, that's where the problem comes in.
And there's this idea, oh, I can customize my character. Yes. I can dress however I like. And I'm not being influenced. If I want to get filler, if I want to get a BBL, if I can do yada yada. But it really is catering to, one, the male gaze.
Yes.
And two, to this ideal standard that these other women are perpetuating. And I've said perpetuating so much in this episode, but we're going to brush right past that. So I feel, though, that you take a look at these game shows and you see a lot of people who are actively being influenced in ways that they might not even understand. It's, oh, I may not be able to get a man like that if I don't look like this.
Yes.
You know, I need X, Y, and Z in order to attract someone like my favorite character on Love Island. Mm-hmm. And these aren't just characters. They're real people who have turned themselves into characters.
Yes.
So that's where we move on to my next point here, the perception of intimacy. Are dating reality TV shows affecting relationships? This is done by an academic named Joto Botang, and in the words of the paper, reality shows are designed to make the real world indistinguishable from the world constructed in television. Thus, we integrate and internalize the information presented on them into our personal lives, values, and beliefs. Furthermore, they create a guide for what our lives ought to be, which insinuates that while reality TV shows give us a glimpse into an idealistic version of life, they can present problems regarding how we view our personal lives and interpersonal relationships by sharing and creating unrealistic standards of how intimacy should be engaged in and perceived.
Yeah, and I think that definitely plays into, I don't have a study with me to back this
Sure.
up, but based on like observation, right? There are people who may watch reality show or just watch TV in general, any sort of like fictional representation of life, and mimic those dynamics in their own lives, whether that be for better, like maybe you really like a character and you're like, oh, they're really nice, I want to act more like, I don't know, I want to act more like that, and then you do that in real life. Or if it's, oh, the way that this relationship drama in this thing played out, you know, I'm playing it out in my own head, mimicking it in real life to sort of spur up drama in your own relationships. And that doesn't even have to be a sexual relationship. It can be friendships. It can be,
for sure.
It can be
any
romantic.
amount of intimacy.
Exactly. So we definitely see that problem. And then this can be extended to how we're seeing a lot of people. And I feel like Love is Blind and The Ultimatum are the biggest sort of culprits of this, though I think The Bachelor,
I think Love Island is the biggest culprit.
Love Island, The Bachelor, a lot of the big ones with people trying to, especially the ones I feel like with The Ultimatum, where you're already in a relationship and trying to get your partner on the show, partially just whether it is to sleep with other people, which we saw in some seasons, or to get influencer followings. These are a little not exactly in line with the study you just shared, but connected to it, trying to mimic a lot of the things you see in reality come into real life with that fame, with the Instagram followers, trying to get a lot of that traction online, And I think this plays into the gamification that you talked about with what is that prize at the end. And nowadays, for a lot of the people coming onto these shows, it is that influencer following, which
is not as big anymore. You used to see people get on Big Brother, get on Love Island in the beginning seasons, and to have 100,000 followers when they left.
But now it's so concentrated. Now there's too many of them.
There's an oversaturation of the market there. There's an oversaturation in the dating show sphere. I think we are seeing people get tired of this on top of like the dating app burnout. And this gamification of these reality shows pushes a narrative that these are how real relationships work. It's not a dating sim. And a dating sim, for people who may not know, is a simulation of a dating atmosphere, a story. It is often an animated game where you can build your own character or you play as a set character, and you can romance people in a school setting or a work setting, or it's have people woo you, and there's like harems and reverse harems where it's like you're a girl and you have a bunch of guys wooing you, or you're a guy and you have to pick out of a bunch of girls who all love you and they're all different, and you get to pick your ideal partner. And I mean, there's 1,000 games like this. I've only ever played the horror-themed ones, like Doki Doki
Literature Club. Yeah.
Oh, Doki Doki Literature Club. Very good.
Yes.
Incredibly scary.
Yeah, because it really does subvert the genre in a way that you don't expect.
Yes, which I like about that. And so those games do not push a narrative that this is how real relationships are.
Yeah.
You have people who take them too far, but you'll have someone take any media too far.
Yeah.
These game shows, these dating game shows that model relationship behaviors that are meant to be taken as real and genuine.
Yeah.
You have people starting drama. And another thing that people need to realize about reality TV that I do think people know in theory, you go, oh yeah, sure, they ply them all with alcohol. Oh yeah, sure, they have a crazy filming schedule. Love Island, those people get to sleep from 4 a.m. to about 10 a.m.
Yeah.
It's not following a natural circadian rhythm that is for production purposes, but also for the purposes of creating more drama. When you deprive people of sleep, when you deprive people of outside interaction, of connection to their family and close friends, when you force them into new situations that are overtly sexual, where you have a lot of alcohol that is greasing the wheels of these conversations, you are going to create good drama, but you are also going to create inaccurate responses to accurate situations.
Yes.
So these games are really pushing a narrative that is affecting, as we've seen with these studies, is genuinely affecting people's ideas of what relationships are. And I do hope that our media literacy is strong enough as a generation where we can understand this, but I think we can be swayed even in ways where we don't realize it outright.
Yes.
So the idea of open communication with your partner, apparently on the ultimatum, that's something that they don't know.
Yeah. There's so many of these shows where drama will happen, and I will say to myself, if you just had a conversation about this, like back in the pods, if it's Love is Blind, or a little bit earlier, all of this could have been avoided. You didn't have to have the argument. You could have just talked about. I think the one example that I think of is there was a couple on Love is Blind where there was a disagreement of almost like a moral disagreement about being in the armed forces.
Yes, I know this season.
Yes.
And we had the male partner was against the military.
Yes.
And the female partner, she was in the military.
Yes.
And she was very pro telling her children that was an okay path and choice to make as an adult, and he was not.
Yeah.
That did come up in the pods, but you would think that would be a much more in-depth conversation.
Yeah, you would think that something as important as certain values that you hold would be a more in-depth conversation before you decide to, in the case of Love is Blind, get engaged.
Right? And it's always escalating. Now, this is something about TV that we learned from day one when I was studying television in college. you have to raise the stakes. The stakes are what drives your characters. So in this instance, we're not just going from like, oh, we're talking to, we're officially dating. Yeah. We're going from, we're meeting for the first time to engaged.
Yes.
That is what you see on 90 Day Fiancé. That's what you see on Married at First Sight.
Yeah.
You are raising these stakes intensely. These people, after they leave these pods on Love is Blind, they go on a vacation together and then they mock live together.
Yes.
You have to raise the stakes of these games so intensely that other people, your viewership, might begin to normalize it.
Yes.
And to normalize this level of relationship without serious moral conversations like that, like whether or not you want to have kids, how you'd like to split finances, what your ideal is, how you'd like to push each other to keep growing, whether you agree morally with certain like aspects of our government and military. These things are, we see, oh, kind of taken lightly, oh, maybe we can work around it, yada yada, when in reality these are incredibly divisive moral stances.
Yes. With talking about the gamification of reality shows, and one of the prizes in a lot of these like love relationship centric reality shows being getting into that couple together, and seeing that a lot of these shows, especially with reunion episodes being so popular, seeing that a lot of these people, even though maybe they said that, oh, they would continue dating after the end, or they end up getting married, but then and then you see 1 year later they've split up completely. Coming from a marketing standpoint and from a viewership standpoint, what do you think is more exciting and engaging for the audience? Seeing the drama of relationships happening on screen and a lot of this toxic behavior, a lot of this behavior that wouldn't end up in resulting in a very healthy long-term relationship like a lot of these shows try to create? Or do you think it's seeing everybody at the end being happy with the partner that they chose? Like, do you think success is more satisfying or failure?
We as viewers care about what we see on screen. Basically everything that happens off screen, if they stay together, if they don't stay together, if they have a kid, if they break up, if they get with other cast members, though interesting, is not actively televised, so we care less.
I see.
So I find the reunions interesting only when we get to resolve past drama. There was a very big reunion for Love Island because there was a section of a game where the girls and the guys both had to vote one of their friends out, and it was a small enough pool where they cared about everyone. It genuinely impacted the couples there. This is this past summer, and the most interesting part of the reunion was watching that scene in its entirety. No cutting, no extra audio. It was just them hashing it out. The reunions are interesting for that aspect in rehashing the drama. I don't necessarily care whether they stay together forever or not.
Gotcha.
The idea is you want to keep people stringing along. So you have to have good versus bad. If you have massive drama, you have to have people making up. If you have people who are steady and solid, like we did see with this last season, you have to have something coming in to try and disrupt it. In Love Island, that is often Casa Amor, where they bring all of the boys to a house and they stick a bunch of hot chicks in there, and the hot women, they're only there to break up these couples, and they know that, and it's intentionally a home wrecking sort of environment, because that is interesting. You have to have these parallels. But at the reunions, I don't necessarily care too much whether or not these people have actually stayed together. Most people, I don't think, stay together. Tila Tequila did not stick around with any of her partners that she chose on her show. I always see on Tinder these ads that have Janae and Kenny from this past season of Love Island, because they made it together and it looks like they're still together, and that is a big draw on Tinder. It's like, hey, look, you know, you can meet the love of your life and stick around and stay together, and it's like good for them to get there. Janae had some troubles, like, and it was really cute. Honestly, her and Kenny are very adorable together, but I care a little less now that they've settled down. And
there's no more drama.
There's no more drama. There's no more incentive to keep watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So that is ultimately what drives viewerships, are the stakes, the balance of the drama, but the drama itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my little spiel on the gamification of love, just that it exists. It is not necessarily affecting our generations positively, nor our view on love and how it should function. These apps are also turning dating into games. It is very much the same almost mechanics of games, really, that we're finding every day in these apps. If you're on a dating app, I think Hinge is probably the best one because you get to put the most amount of information about yourself. But thank you, Sana, for joining me. This was just my little spiel on the gamification of love. I don't know where we're headed, but we can look at where we've been and where we're going. And I think that we could all do with a little bit of in-person connection. I think we should get off the apps. I don't think I will, but I think we should get off the apps. And I think we should meet in person, find common activities, and just experience a little bit more. I don't know where we're going, but I know where we've been. And I know that I think it would be best if we all went outside and met people in person. I think we should stop modeling our relationships over things that we see on screen and take the game out of love.
I agree. And just to sort of, I don't know, add a little bit of like a, I don't want, maybe sociology twist on this all. I don't know if that's the right term to use for this, but if you want to find people in communities that are like-minded to yours, the best place to find them is in person.
Yes.
Because we find that a lot of these communities, a lot of these movements, I have seen that many of them have their ideologies diluted and changed as many of them have moved to online spaces.
Yes, that's for sure.
So if you want to find people who share similar values to yours, like, I guess as an example, my relationship, we met playing D&D.
And look at you guys now.
And look at us now.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, some games, I guess in my case, aren't too bad when it comes to finding love.
The point is, you were in person, you met through something you both loved, and you talked and communicated. Communication is the number one thing. Even if your relationships don't work out, even if things are tough, communication will get you through everything. And that is key. And that is something that a lot of these games take away.
And if you like to use these apps, this is no shame on that.
Absolutely
not. Please understand if you...
Like I said, I'm still on
Exactly. So enjoy your time with them. If you have luck with them, that's incredible. I'm very happy for you specifically. Otherwise, don't watch these shows and think that's life, because they're not.
Just watch them to laugh at the people on screen.
Exactly.
That's what they're meant for. All right. So thank you so much for sitting down with me. I hope everyone has a very happy Valentine's Day, whether you're with someone or with yourself. Yeah.
Remember to like, subscribe, follow us.
Comment,
all the links
share,
are in the description. Have a lovely Valentine's Day, and we'll see you next episode. Bye.